Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. At this time around, I'm doing a list of Blaxploitation movies that I recommend. I've gone around the shelves, I've picked them out, I've sorted them out, and I thought I would share them with you just to give you a tasting tray of Blaxploitation movies that I think you would like if you are so inclined. Of course, Blaxploitation is a genre that started in the 1960s and grew in the 1970s, and in the 80s it died out around the time Rudy Ray Moore made Disco Godfather. It's a genre that people have ambivalent feelings about, and I respect everybody's opinion on this. I'm not a person of colour, but I respect the diverse opinions about Blaxploitation that people of colour have. I listen to them, but I have my own opinions about that genre because I grew up with it. Blaxploitation films are among the films that I watched when I was a teenager. I'd knock off work. I started working full time when I was 15. I'd knock off work and go into the city and see movies, and amongst the movies I saw were Blaxploitation. And even before I went to work, when I got the opportunity, I would see Blaxploitation movies and enjoy them. At its basis, Blaxploitation movies are working class movies. They're about people who are disadvantaged because of their race in a lot of cases, who try to stick it to the man. They're working class people who are striving for a better life. They're people who in some cases live in an environment that's very crime ridden. But for the most part, at least, they're not part of the criminal organizations in their area. But some of them are. And at the time I was watching these movies, I did live in a high crime area. I didn't see it as that at the time, but there were a lot of things that happened around me and some things that happened to me, which were very much part of living in that kind of an area. So I'll go through the list. They're in no particular order. You might want to grab a pen and paper and just write down these ones. And let's get started with these two. These are kind of down-market Blaxploitation movies. And the version I've got of these isn't very good. It's on DVD, and it's two movies to a DVD. It's The Black Gestapo and The Black Six. These are from oldies.com, Alpha Home Entertainment. They're not the best copies of these things. They're from quite worn prints. The Black Gestapo is a mad film. General Ahmed's People's Army is powerless to protect the people of Watts from ruthless white criminal lords. Drugs, prostitution, assault and murder are out of control. Ahmed gives one of his men, Colonel Koja, permission to form an armed protection squad to stand up to the white thugs. Emulating the dreaded German Gestapo, they enact vicious revenge against the men oppressing their black brothers, and I assume their sisters. After driving the mob out, they take up the same lucrative crime activities they once fought against. Having unleashed a monster, General Ahmed must now fight Koja and his black fascist takeover. That's an interesting idea for a movie. And it is, like I said, a mad movie. Low budget, but it really has a point of view. The other one is The Black Six. The 6 black Vietnam vets ride their choppers cross-country, staying just out of the reach of the cops and ignorant white trash bigots. One of them receives news that his brother Eddie has been murdered. Returning to the old hometown with his pals, Bubba learns that Eddie was seeing a white girl named Jenny and that Jenny's brother Moose leads an outlaw bike gang. You can get the rest of it. So that's the kind of low-rent Blaxploitation grindhouse picture I love. Like I said, I'm starting these in random order. And The Black Gestapo and The Black Six, if you're like grindhouse movies, they're the ones to go to in this genre. Next ones were made by a major Hollywood studio, Warner Brothers. And the original story upon which the first movie was based was written by Max Julian, a person of colour, who made one of the other movies I'm going to talk about here. It was actually directed by Jack Starrett. Was the second one? No, the second one was directed by Chuck Bale, who was a stuntman. It's Cleopatra Jones, the first one, about a government agent, played by Tamara Dobson, who takes down the people who grow and distribute drugs. There's a good cast in this. It's Tamara Dobson, Bernie Casey, Brenda Sykes, and Shelley Winters as a vicious lesbian crime lord. Like I said, it was made by Warner Brothers, but it definitely has credibility because Max Julian wrote the original story. The second one, and the villain in the second one is Stella Stevens, is Cleopatra Jones and the Casino of Gold, which isn't quite as good as the first one. And to be honest with you, Tamara Dobson wasn't as charismatic as some other female leads in Blaxploitation movies. But these two are a bit of fun to watch. Great soundtrack, and Warner Brothers was doing interesting exploitation films at the time. But these ones are very much a studio product. They go to a certain point and don't go further than that. They're not as edgy and as tough as some of the other movies in that genre. But they're a lot of fun to watch, good production values, and they're a decent double feature of Blaxploitation films if you're so inclined. Then we're going to go to the silly end of things. And Rudy Ray Moore, who was a comedian, who worked in the 50s and 60s and did what they call party albums, adult albums where all the jokes are rude and the records were distributed not at the top tier of record distribution. And they're the kind of naughty records that people played at parties with lots of risque comedy in them. And Rudy Ray Moore jumped on the exploitation bandwagon and the Blaxploitation bandwagon in the 1970s with Dolomite, which is a lot of fun. He's playing a pimp who's just got out of jail and has to go up against gangsters. Funny thing is, Rudy Ray Moore does a lot of fighting in this, and Rudy Ray Moore couldn't fight his way out of a damp paper bag. It's just hilariously funny, and it leans into that fun. It has some bits where Moore does some of his comedy shtick, and it's just such mad fun. Low budget, low rent. It doesn't take itself at all seriously as you might expect. And I just love it. I love the comedy in it. I love the madness. I love the low rent aesthetic of it. And then we've got the second Rudy Ray Moore Dolomite movie, The Human Tornado, which is even madder and badder. There is a lot of gratuitous nudity in it because it is a 1970s exploitation film, just like there is in Dolomite. But again, these two make a really cool double feature, and I enjoy them every time I watch them. In fact, I've got the soundtrack album on CD for Dolomite, and it's really good fun. And the other thing I like about these movies, like some other Blaxploitation films, is that a lot of them were filmed on the streets of Los Angeles in the black areas like Watts and Compton and places like that. So there's a documentary aspect to it, and some of it's filmed in nightclubs in Los Angeles at the time. And so you see what real nightclubs were like in the 1970s. And I always like that little peek into the stuff that the big movies never showed you about the 1970s and about life in the 1970s. So from that point of view as well, these ones are a lot of fun. This one I got for you is a triple feature. It says Soul Showcase triple feature. Trick Baby, Willie Dynamite, and That Man Bolt. That Man Bolt stars Fred the Hammer Williamson, and it's kind of like a Shaft ripoff, but it's a lot of fun. Willie Dynamite is about a pimp. A lot of them are about pimps. And Trick Baby is about a pair of con men who work defeating white people. Haven't seen Trick Baby in a long time, but this triple feature, again, it's a low-budget release. Willie Dynamite's on his own disc, but the other two are share a DVD. Like this one, it's low-rent grindhouse Blaxploitation, and it's to be taken at that level. You couldn't really do Blaxploitation without doing some Pam Grier. And in this case, we've got Coffy, one of the two great Pam Grier Blaxploitation movies. This is the Umbrella edition, which came out about 6 to 7 months ago. And I'll just take the disc out so you can see there's a lot of good information. There's Pam Grier and Robert Doakey playing a pimp. And there it is, the baddest one-chick hit squad that ever hit town. They call her Coffy and she'll cream you. Fantastic stuff. Pam Grier was the perfect heroine for Blaxploitation movies. She was tough, she was statuesque, she didn't take shit from anybody. And the other Pam Grier movie you really should have in a Blaxploitation collection, of course, is Foxy Brown, which is great. Both of these were directed by Jack Hill, and they are incredibly good, tough chick Blaxploitation movies. There's a scene at the end of Foxy Brown where she gets revenge on the white man and his girlfriend who did her wrong in a way that is incredible. Now, if you know, you know, but if you don't, you should see it because it is something really full on and so 1970s exploitation and so body horror that I totally love it. And when I first saw it in the 1970s, I went, wow, I'm never pissing off Pam Grier. It's just not worth it. Terrific stuff. Filmed on the streets of Los Angeles again. And just chef's kiss exploitation, grindhouse Blaxploitation of the 1970s. This stuff is the good stuff, and Pam Grier is the queen of blaxploitation. Next up, I do one that's kind of on the border of blaxploitation. It's actually an adaptation of John Ford's movie The Informer, made in 1968 by Jules Dassin, an American director who was banned by the House Un-American Activities Authority and the Blacklist. Went to shoot things in Europe, made Rafifi and Top Coffy and a whole bunch of good caper films. Then came back to America to make Uptight, which is a really good crime drama, but it's also blaxploitation. It's got Raymond St. Jakes, Ruby Dee, Roscoe Lee Brown, and it also stars Julian Mayfield. Really strong drama and really interestingly done. And Julian Mayfield playing the informer in this is incredible. It says on the back here, in the days after the assassination of Martin Luther King, an unemployed and itinerant steelworker turns over his militant friends to the police for the $1,000 reward, resulting in an underground all-points bulletin to exact revenge on the squealer. Incredible movie. Really underrated, and it just doesn't get enough love when people are talking about black-related cinema of the 60s and 70s. But Uptight, you should definitely have. I don't know if it's still available from imprint, but find it and keep it and watch it. Down to the last four now, and one of them's a trilogy, so all good there. Max Julian, Richard Pryor, Roger E. Mosley, the Mack. It's about a pimp played by Max Julian, who's trying to get his life together and trying to get out of the business and trying to get his ducks lined up. Really strong movie, this one. And that cast, Richard Pryor, Roger E. Mosley, Don Gordon's in there, Carol Speed, music by Willie Hutch, which is fantastically good. And Max Julian is really, really good. Directed by Michael Campos. This one, again, is as underrated a blaxploitation movie as there is. But if you can find a copy of the Mack, you should definitely have it. If you like exploitation movies, if you like Grindhouse, this one is for you. Really, really, really among the best of the genre. And I can't speak about it highly enough. I'm going to have to rewatch this one, I think. I saw it a couple of years ago and it blew me away on the third viewing because I'd seen it 2 times before. But the Mack, you should definitely check out. And now I'm wondering whether it's on Blu-ray somewhere or 4K where I can get it. But that one, high recommendation from me. Then we'll get to the obvious one. Made by Warner Brothers, based on the novels by Ernest Tidyman, the Shaft Trilogy. Shaft's Big Score, and Shaft in Africa, which is very underrated. I think Shaft in Africa is an interesting film with Richard Roundtree in them. Really great movies. I mean, these are the movies that people think of when people say blaxploitation. Again, those studio film, but they do have a toughness about them and a bite that it was more than you would have expected from a studio film of the 1970s. I just loved the first one. I really enjoyed the second one, though it's not as fantastic as the first one with this wonderful Isaac Hayes soundtrack. And by the way, it's not just the theme from Shaft on the soundtrack that really hits. The lesser tracks on the soundtrack, like Cafe Regio's, and the other tracks are just beautiful needle drops if you want something to play at a party. And Shaft in Africa, where he goes undercover in Africa to uncover a slave pipeline which is bringing workers into Europe from Africa for slave wages, is really good. I like it. It's a little more James Bondy than the other two are, but it kind of works. And a lot of it's shot in location in Africa. Really underrated. Those three together will make a very good long evening of movie watching for you. Then we go to the low-rent brother of Shaft, Jim Brown in Slaughter and Slaughter's Big Ripoff. Slaughter itself was filmed partly in Mexico, directed by Mark Hanna. And in the first one, Jim Brown plays an ex-Vietnam vet whose family gets blown up by the mafia. And he goes after the people that killed him, including Rip Torn, who is as mad as Rip Torn's ever been in a movie. This one's got Stella Stevens in it as well, Don Gordon playing a cop that works with him, Cameron Mitchell and Marlene Clark. Really good one. And Slaughter's Big Ripoff, which is the second of the series. Gloria Henry's in it. Ed McMahon's in there playing a villain, which is really kind of interesting. Don Stroud's in there again. Brock Peters. Good, solid, but like second tier blaxploitation, and worth checking out. Are these on individual discs? Yes, they are. These I pick up over the years. Every time I find a blaxploitation movie that I haven't got a copy of, I'll add it to my list and eventually find a copy of it. And Slaughter was the first R-rated movie I ever saw, along with Scorsese's Boxcar Bertha. They were on a double feature at my local cinema. I really was blown away by the combination of Scorsese doing a Depression-era drama about union organisers, amongst other things, and then a solid blaxploitation movie with Jim Brown in it. Great double feature. I snuck into these movies when I was 15, and you were supposed to be 18 because R-rated movies you had to be 18 to get in to see. And I went in, I put on a deep voice. I actually put Brute aftershave on myself, and went in and went, "Can I have a ticket, please?" in the deepest voice I could possibly do. Guy didn't even look up and just slipped me a ticket. And I remember that wonderfully. And I went in and saw these movies, Slaughter and Boxcar Bertha, and was blown away by them. And ever since then, I've had an unusually intense love for the movie Slaughter because of that history I've got with it. The last one I've got for you is a revolutionary movie. It's didactic, it's powerful. Directed by Arvid Dixon, who was in Hogan's Heroes, amongst other things, but became a very fine director afterwards. Stars Loris Cook, Jack Aaron, Don Blakeney, Paul Butler, Paula Kelly, based on a novel written by Sam Greenlee, The Spook Is Out by the Door. It's about the first black CIA agent who gets trained up to be a CIA agent, and then they just put him in an office by the door so that they can be seen to have a diversity quota. But what they don't know is that this guy's a revolutionary, and all the things the CIA teaches him, he starts a revolutionary army with. Incredible movie from the late 1960s. Again, a hidden gem of blaxploitation. It's one you should definitely check out, and it's very confronting in some ways. It's one of those movies that some people say you couldn't make that movie these days, but for all the right reasons. I think that possibly you could. I love this one, and even though it does have a fairly low budget, it does a lot with the budget, and it's got a political viewpoint, and it's didactic as hell, and I love it. I think that you should definitely see this one, and if you're going to double feature it with anything, probably the best one to double feature it would be Uptight. I think they've got some of the same revolutionary sensibilities, and together they would make a really fine double feature, either in a cinema or else just for yourself, to gain a deeper understanding of black political cinema in the 1960s and 1970s. These two would sit together perfectly for that. That's what I've got for you this time around. All of those great blaxploitation movies, going across the range from pure action films to political movies, strong female characters in some of them, weak female characters in other ones. Blaxploitation was a moment in cinema when censorship was dropping, awareness of political injustice was rising, and there was a blossoming of creativity. And blaxploitation as a genre had some of the best soundtracks of any genre you could think of. Just the use of music by people like Isaac Hayes and Curtis Mayfield in Superfly, which I haven't mentioned because I don't have a copy of it, and Willie Hutch and all sorts of other people. The soundtracks on blaxploitation movies are mind-blowingly good. That crossover of genre cinema, grindhouse cinema, black cinema, and black contemporary music makes blaxploitation something very, very special in cinema, and something that I will appreciate, even though I am aware that some people see it from a different viewpoint and have issues with blaxploitation, first as a name, but also as a genre of cinema to appreciate. There are a lot of different views on that, and I respect them all. But for me, I like the genre, I like the movies, and I like what some of the movies have to say. So that's what I got for you this time around. Please like and subscribe to this video if you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up, hit the notification bell. You can support the channel by becoming a channel member, or else by becoming a patron at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Next up, we've got the Wednesday video, and I've got some really cool ideas for that. And then we get to Science Fiction Saturday once more at the end of the week. Weather's warming up here. It's about 28 degrees today. It's very humid. We're getting the weather from the tropics, which I kind of like. And we're heading into Christmas, where it's going to get even hotter. I'm not particularly doing any Christmas themed stuff for the channel because that's not really my bag. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, stay warm up there. If you're down here, keep hydrated and use some sunscreen. But until next time, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some Blaxploitation movies and have a really great time. And I'll catch you next time.